Is it time for the Warriors to just accept the fact that there may not be that savior in this year's trade market, and maybe it's best to just focus on the fruits of their own labor?
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Get them up, Dan. Big time show today on Locked On Warriors. Thank you for making us your first listen of every day. We are free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts, also streaming on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As summer winds down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Charlie Walter here, a former KPIX anchor and 95.7 The Game host, covered the Dubs for a couple of seasons. And joining me today is a man that I hosted with on 95.7 The Game. They call him the Big Kahuna. They call him the Skip Bayless of the Bay Area. That is Dan Devone. We're going to talk about the Jazz wanting a package surrounding Brandin Podziemski. Would Dan Devone do it? How much of a sophomoric surge could Trace Jackson-Davis have this season? And the Dubs have signed a two-way player who brings some size, and he's a player that's been shooting lights out. First of all, Dan, good to see you. How are we, my friend?
I'm doing very well. How are you? I'm excited to be on board with Locked On Sports. Or am I? Because as I flew across the country in prepping for today's appearance, I went through and saw some of your previous shows, and of course, Chuckles blowing it up as I knew he would. But you're racing through the Rolodex, aren't you, my man? Like, I've seen a lot of guests on this show, and I'm wondering, next week you got who's the guest? Or did you just get to the D's? Is that where the Dan Devone and the Kahuna connection came about?
No, I'm not hitting the alphabet. I'm going with the A-listers first, Dan. So that's where you come in. You were gracious to give me some of your time. So let's get right into it, man. Joe Lacob's a smart man. He was on the Athletics podcast today and basically said, I will not hemorrhage a decade of our future in order to win now. It's just not going to happen. It makes no sense. There are other ways to get it done. He also mentioned that trading is the most risky part and is just illogical at the end of the day because the owners that he's dealing with, they're asking for a Jonathan Kuminga, a Brandin Podziemski, a Moses Moody, hey, and give me all the draft picks. Danny Ainge is trying to catch the Golden State Warriors in desperation mode right now, knowing that Steph Curry's timeline is tick, as Chris Berman would say. And I don't think that Joe Lacob's going to bite. The question becomes, would he bite for that Podziemski package? Let's say the Jazz threw in like a Jordan Clarkson, or they threw in a Walker Kessler, or a nice little piece that all of a sudden maybe balances out the fact that they're getting rid of a bunch of this draft capital and the Warriors like the potential return. Would you even entertain the thought of Brandin Podziemski, or are you sold that he's going to be a really good player for the Golden State Warriors?
Let me try this again. Let's just say you get Lauri Markkanen. All right, and Podziemski's out the door. I like Podziemski, but I don't think they're going to move him. I think they see him as a future leader. Is Lauri Markkanen, and I want everybody out there that's a Warrior fan, I'm not hating on the Warriors, just be realistic for a minute. You think Lauri Markkanen is the difference between the Warriors winning another title? You think Lauri Markkanen is going to put you back into the winner's circle? I don't even think you get to the Western Conference. That's how stacked the West is. And if that doesn't happen and you don't win a title, you have to max this guy out at the end of next year. You've just traded all of your assets. You have no draft picks. And if it's not working out with Lauri Markkanen and you're not winning titles, well, then who the hell are you? Because Steph Curry is soon to be 37 years of age. And Draymond Green isn't getting any younger. You have no future other than Lauri Markkanen. So just ask yourself, if you think Lauri Markkanen is the difference, is the missing piece. This is not 2018, all right? Barack Obama is not president any longer. We're just Kevin Durant away from winning a title. We're not just a stretch forward from winning a title. That used to be the conversation. No, go get the TNT and blow this thing up. You have got to just wait this out, go young, get your arms around the salary, and then start anew. And I think Joe Lacob recognizes that, but he's trying to be subtle. And he's going to be competitive, but he's not going to be an idiot and try and bring in someone like that of a Zach LaVine, a Lauri Markkanen, or any of the high-priced free agents. It makes no sense.
You say blow it up. You say go and get the TNT. Based on Lacob's comments on the podcast, he thinks they're going to have a pretty competitive team. They're going to be much better than they were last year. And he likes comparing this team to potentially the 21-22 team by less is more, adding a bunch of players that know their role, that can surround Steph Curry, and they can bank on some of the young players developing in their second, third, and fourth seasons and become, really good players that help this team win. So my question to you is, what does blowing it up entail? How could they even blow this thing up at this point, aside from trading Steph Curry? And I hope, Dan, I know that you're the Skip Bayless of the Bay Area. I know that you said Jimmy G for MVP. You said that Sam Darnold should start over Brock Purdy. We had a whiteboard at 95.7 The Game. Some of the asinine takes that you have said over the years, you hit on a few. Even a blind bird every once in a while finds a nut. With that being said, what does blowing it up mean to you?
All right, not necessarily blowing it up, but how about this? You're not in a position to take on a free agent, albeit the best that's left standing, because you're not a free agent away of winning a title. You don't have to blow it up. And as far as Steph Curry is concerned, because all I hear is you can't do this to Steph, all right? He's done so much for and he has. Steph isn't going anywhere. He's ensconced in San Francisco, all right? He's part of the community. He's not going to Philly. He's not putting on another uniform before it's all said and done with. I think he recognizes it. What you have to do is what Joe Lacob just laid out. Just be competitive. Now, they'll sell you on we could be, we may slip in and potentially get him another ring. Just be competitive. Don't be Kobe those last 6 years. And they will be. They're going to be one of those teams from 5 to 11 that are just jostling it out and slap fighting with each other every night and just rotating back and forth. They could get into the playoffs and they may win a series. They could steal a series. And to me, that's a good team. And that's all you can ask for at this point, because you'll have a lower salary. You'll be able to identify the next foundation in terms of leaning in on some of these young players. Now you get into the draft and you begin to identify, again, new players, as well as get into free agency. And suddenly you have structure and you have a future. As of right now, future is the operative word. There is no future when everybody's in their mid-30s. And this thing is completely out of whack, and that people are thinking Lauri Markkanen is the answer. He is not. And I hate to be that guy, but you have to not blow it up. But just go ahead and stay with what it is that you have, and then just be relevant in 2 or 3 years, as opposed to having to put your arms around some sort of a contract that you can't afford, and it's going to be a 10-year project.
So you're pretty sold on the fact that the Warriors are going to be pretty decent this year. Nothing special.
I have no idea what the hell they're going to be. If Steph Curry comes out of the game, let me ask you, who scores the basketball? I mean, I don't know. They could be a surprise. Maybe some of these kids, all of a sudden, Moody blossoms. Maybe Kuminga takes that huge step. But I don't want to hear anybody to tell me this is who they're going to be or who they're not going to be. This team is a huge question mark going forward.
Crapshoot.
I think people just have to recognize that this idea of winning, Steph is going to be okay if you're a competitive team. All right, the guy just bought a building down in Dog Patch. His kids only know one thing, and that is dad goes to work at Chase, right? You think mom's gonna have the conversation? Dad's got to go away to Philadelphia for 5 months of the year. You'll be okay, because no, he goes away and he's back at 10 o'clock to kiss him goodnight in their mansion, and everything's fine. He understands that. I think deep down he'll never admit this, but he recognizes that the titles are no longer in his most likely in terms of his career. But if you're competitive, you can sell him on that, and that's all you're going to be from this point. Hopefully you're going to be competitive and you can get into the postseason. And as you do, you begin this rebuild. You lean in on being young, and you no longer have these outlandish salaries. The one guy you have to sell this on, to me, is going to be Draymond Green. Because Draymond Green is about winning and about winning right now. He's not interested in any future that does not include him. So to me, I think that what's imminent is that a conversation, and I think that it's going to be mutual. I think the Golden State Warriors will come to a point where, like, look at Draymond, this is where we're at. You seem to be unhappy. Let's get you out of town. If they can move that contract and get him to a winner, that'll be the next big step. It won't be Lauri Markkanen. It'll be Draymond Green dissatisfied and out of town in about 2 months.
All right, so the big question I have, and I've been kind of giving you the breadcrumbs to answer it, and you keep dodging it. You keep going Matrix every second when I give you this question, but just answer it. What is the ceiling for Brandin Podziemski?
I mean, Brandin Podziemski, I don't think he's a starter this year. He's too small when you look at that backcourt. I think DeAnthony Melton makes more sense. DeAnthony Melton's just a better defender, and he can do more on the offensive end. I think Brandin Podziemski, what he is that, and one of the reasons why he's so valuable. I mean, think about, we're having this conversation a year ago. We're talking about, you can't move Brandin Podziemski. Half of us couldn't even pronounce his last name at this point last year. He was this redheaded stepchild out of Santa Clara. Like, who is this guy? And now suddenly he's this key piece of the Warriors going forward. But Podziemski, what he is that he's got that IQ, and everybody values that. Like, it's something that Steve Kerr recognizes. It's something that other GMs and teams recognize, that player, you got all sorts of dudes like Jordan Poole can fill it up for 25 and guys who can score in this league, but will never win. Because of his IQ, he is a valued basketball player. I think the changing of the guard with the Golden State Warriors, as Steph and Draymond go off to the sunset, your new leader on that team, the guy who's going to run the clubhouse, the guy who's going to step to the forefront and saying, I got the C on my chest, is that kid Brandin Podziemski. I don't know that I think he's better served right now coming off the bench. I like it that 2 spot, maybe Wiggins, maybe DeAnthony Melton. I mean, there's a host of guys. Moody, I know, is making a bid for it. Podziemski, I think, is better served coming off your bench, leading that group. But he is clearly, I think, one of the integral pieces of that basketball team going forward.
If you're looking at him at 6'3" and can play the point guard position, flirts with triple doubles from time to time. I know that the turnovers have been somewhat alarming this summer. He had 7 in his last summer league game before being promoted to not being in the summer league. However, last year it was just over a turnover per game, made the NBA's all rookie team. If he shoots 40% from deep and shows some of the moxie that he has and can finish around the rim, because he was a big man growing up, and that's where he gets some of his instincts around the rim, and he can pass in a lineup that features good passers like Kyle Anderson and Draymond Green, God, and lethal shooters like Steph Curry and Buddy Hield. Why can't Brandin Podziemski be a point guard and be very good? Give me the T. That's a 30-second.
The T is that slow-mo Kyle Anderson. He's another high IQ guy, fits perfectly with Steve Kerr, good basketball player, two-way guy. Yes, you check all those boxes. I'm just telling you, in terms of just from a personal standpoint, one of the most disgusting I cannot. Oh God, I got to projectile vomit. Like, that dude, in terms of basketball players, I got to hurl. Like, I just one of the ugliest players in the NBA, just from a personal standpoint. Like, shoot the damn ball and don't take 30 seconds to do it. That deliberate. I couldn't stand it with Minnesota. But all that being, that's just a personal rant. All right. Time back in. We can get back into him. Yes, he's a good player. I'm just telling you, man, he's disgusting to watch. Just getting back to Brandin Podziemski for a second. Yes, he's a good basketball player. And one of the things that I think fans who keep an eye on this sort of stuff and watch the Summer League, one of the things that he's developed, one of the things he did not have in his bag a year ago, he has that sort of set shot 3, and he can get to the rim with that sort of awkward left hand. He had no mid-range game. He had no pull-up J from like 16 to 18 feet. You have to have that if you're going to be a guard, a point, or a 2. And look at the Summer League. Look who's pulling up in the mid-range. Look who's got a little Jimmy from 18 to 20 feet. So he's been in the lab and putting in some work, which is certainly notable.
Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Trayce Jackson-Davis, it seems like, I don't know if sleeping on him's the right word, but not expecting massive things I think a solid contributor to this year's basketball team is what most Warriors fans are banking on and quite frankly hoping for. But is there maybe a little more in the tank than we're giving him credit for? He doesn't need to wait as long as other players to develop because he did that at Indiana. Came in, already a pretty solid product in his rookie season, averaging 7 points, 5 rebounds, and over a block per game. Really good passer, could push the ball up the floor a little bit. I think he's a very nice defender with that 6'9" frame and his ability to time his shot blocking attempts. Though, when you watch Trayce Jackson-Davis, does he have a little Dale in him? Does he have a little bit of his pops in him? What do you think?
No, I think they're two dissimilar type players. I think the key for Trayce Jackson-Davis is that he's very reliant on, he was reliant on Klay Thompson last year, and they worked that pick and roll to perfection. Believe it or not, it was Klay Thompson that sort of was part of his coming out party that recognized this kid in terms of the pick and roll. And then, of course, CP3, once he saw that, he said, get out of the way. He and I are just going to work this to death. Who is that guy? Steph Curry isn't necessarily a pick and roll type player. So I'm just curious as to who's going to be able to use him when he comes out high and he's setting that screen and pop or he's getting to the rim. You need somebody who's able to recognize his talents. That becomes the big concern. Just to get off of Trayce Jackson-Davis. The reason the pick and roll works so well with Klay Thompson because it's Klay Thompson. Anytime Klay Thompson, you're on that pick and roll, right? So what do you do as defenders? Do we stay with the guy rolling or do we jump Klay? Klay had that gravitational pull where anytime he's going out on the perimeter, regardless of whether he's shooting it well or not, reputation alone, you got to send 2 guys at him, which open the opportunities for Trayce Jackson-Davis. That is no longer there with the Golden State Warriors. The spacing is no longer there with the Golden State Warriors. Things like pick and roll are going to be so much more easier to defend for teams that are taking on the Warriors because you don't have the threat, at least anybody that I know of, that can shoot it the way Klay Thompson did. So there are a lot of challenges ahead as it relates to one Trayce Jackson-Davis as well as the Golden State Warriors.
You walked yourself right into this bear trap. You asked for it, but there is someone that the Warriors could potentially have. It's going to cost you Brandin Podziemski. It's going to cost you Moses Moody and some draft picks, but you literally just described what Lauri Markkanen does best.
Well, okay, but we go back to square one. Yeah, Lauri Markkanen is good in that area, but is he worth re-signing him to a max deal? Is he the difference between winning an NBA championship? I would argue no. So, yeah, okay, well, you're going to get some pick and roll.
Well, is that the final barometer? Is it all about championship or bust, or is it about making your team better? And look, no. I talked about this on yesterday's show. Like, I don't know if it came to that and you had to throw Podziemski in a deal, like, I'm hedging the bets here. I'm being cowardice. I do not know if I'd do it or not. I'd sleep on it for sure. I'd entertain it because I do think Lowry's a nice player. I'm just saying, you mentioned exactly like what Trayce Jackson-Davis had last year. That's kind of what Lauri could provide in some sense.
Yeah, listen, it is Tyler bust with Lauri Markkanen. Otherwise, why are you getting him? Are you getting him to, after you just unloaded $73 million of salary, got underneath the cap, and Joe Lacob said, I'm not doing this any longer. And he was true to his word. Are you going to do this just simply so you can get back into salary cap hell? No, you're doing this to win and win right now for Steph Curry and matching windows and all that crap. So if you don't win a title, well, you have no future of which to speak because you've traded all your assets and you have no draft picks. So yeah, it's title or bust if you bring in somebody like that of Lauri Markkanen in my estimation. The other thing to keep in mind, Chuck, is that if I'm Danny Ainge, again, I'm not thoroughly convinced that he's arrived at a place where he's ready to move off of Lauri Markkanen. But if he is, I don't know that the Warriors have enough assets to turn his head. Somebody and a team to keep an eye on is San Antonio. San Antonio's got nothing but draft picks. And they're more unprotected and more attractive than that of the Golden State Warriors. That's a team that may want to win right now simply to prove to Wembanyama that we're in, man, because that extension's coming up. And look, at most guys are going to demand close to $90 million a year, are going to want to play in that big coastal city. So they can't sell him on a 2 or 3 or 4 year plan. They got to show him that they're ready to win as of yesterday. So as much as everybody thinks it's the Warriors and Utah. Keep an eye on San Antonio, because if they want to pull that trigger, I think it's a done deal.
It seems to be that free agency is no longer a move for the Golden State Warriors. The only way that enhance their roster, and Mike Dunleavy alluded to this, that they're not 100% satisfied. They're always looking for ways to better their team. And in order to do that, it may involve some sort of a trade. Sounds like the big one is off the table for you. Now, maybe some players could come available that aren't right now. That Zach LaVine move that you say, absolutely, we don't want Zach LaVine. Maybe the asking price comes down a lot.
The Warriors don't want him.
Chicago just wants to get rid of him. But the roster doesn't make sense right now for Golden State. They have how many shooting guards between Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, then you add Gary Payton into the mix? Where does Gary Payton fall into this fold? He seems like a likely trade candidate. We've heard that Kevon Looney, he may be on the move potentially. Who wants Kevon Looney? What could you get in return for him? But there are just some pieces right now that don't necessarily fit on this roster. You as a betting man, what's coming next?
There could be a trade involved, but Chuck, again, trade for what? To do what? To win a title? Because that's basically where the bar is for fans here in the Bay Area. That's just not going to happen. So I think what's really difficult, and nobody likes it because it's not sexy, is to welcome the reset, to say hello to a rebuild. And you can do it while you can still be competitive, and that's what this team is going to be. Yeah, you can reshuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic. It's not going to make a difference whether Gary Payton goes or stays and whoever it is that you get in return. But this is a team that is looking to get under the cap, save money, invest in the future, go young, and that always – this is inevitable when you have an aging team that just went through this dynastic run. Everybody faces D-Day. Welcome to what was inevitable. When you swung and missed on James Weissman, when you screwed up on re-signing Wiggins, which were deals that you had to do it. When you you re-signed Draymond Green for 4 years, I'm not laying the blame at the feet of Bob Myers or anybody else. It's just life in the NBA. But here we are. So what do? You don't try and squeeze something out of something that's not there, like Zach LaVine or Lauri Markkanen. We're getting no. Stop. Let's just lick our wounds. All right. We're not going to be good for a couple of years. We'll be competitive, but it's only going to be a couple of years, and then we'll get back after it with a new foundation, identifying a new core. Everybody's going to be in their 20s. We'll get into that sweet spot, and we'll grow this thing again. That's what it is that you have to swallow as Warrior fans.
Kylan, I'm going to need you to cut that soundbite, put it up there with the Sam Darnold's going to lead the 49ers to a Super Bowl, and also Jimmy G for the 2022 MVP. So I'm going to need that from you. Dan Devone, thanks for hopping on the show today. I'm taking a solo the rest of the way, but appreciate you making some time in your very busy schedule for the show.
Absolutely. Anytime, Chuckles.
Good stuff. Daquan Plowden, the newest member of the Golden State Warriors. We're talking about what he brings to the table. Daquan Plowden. He is the newest member of the Golden State Warriors. A round of applause to Daquan, who's been excellent in the summer league for the Golden State Warriors. He is an intriguing talent. He's 6'6", has shot it over 45% from three-point range this summer. Has led the Warriors in scoring 26 points in 24 minutes in their 50-point win of the Miami Heat in the Summer League game on July 6th. That was what kind of got the Dub Nation to notice Daquan Plowden. And since then, he's just played well and continued to play well, and he stacked up good performance on good performance, and it was enough for him to earn a two-way contract along with Reese Beekman, and all signs are pointing to potentially Quentin Post getting that third one. So on Tuesday, he gets the two-way contract, and 6'6", 215 pounds. A lot of comparisons to Juan Toscano-Anderson, who also joined the franchise through a two-way deal before earning the standard contracts and, quite frankly, playing a role on the 21-22 championship team. Plowden's known as an abundance of energy, and that can be reminiscent of Toscano-Anderson at times, but he's got more bounce than Juan Toscano-Anderson. We've seen it with some really athletic tip slams and just in general some throwdowns off lobs from Podziemski and other players on this team. But he exhibits the basketball intellect the Warriors value, and the league is athletic wings at this point. That's who seems to thrive, and that's what Plowden is. It's 6'6", add some size, add some youth, and you're just taking a gamble with him in regards to a two-way contract. You're not going to complain about that. So 16.7 points in his 5 summer league games, 53% from the floor, and 48% from distance. If he's 6'6", and I say if he's 6'6", he's 6'6". If he can shoot 48% from 3 with that size, I don't care what the rest of his skill set is. Oh, and by the way, I should mention that at Bowling Green in the MAC, he was first team all-defensive MAC player. So I haven't really seen enough of him at a high level guarding NBA players because his last 2 seasons were spent in the G League, where he didn't have exceptional numbers by any means. But, we'll see if he can guard at this level and if he can be a really good defender in this league, because if he does that and he shoots, forget 48%, if he just shoots 38% from distance with that 6'6" frame and his ability to get up, he's going to be dangerous. Plowden was not selected in the 2022 NBA draft. Instead, signed a Exhibit 10 contract with the New Orleans Pelicans, spent the last 2 years with the G League affiliates of the Pelicans and then the Orlando Magic. So summer league performances. How excited are you going to get about him? I don't know, but 6'6" and someone that can knock down some shots maybe reminds you a little bit of Anthony Lamb, who played a role for the Golden State Warriors a few years back on a pretty solid Golden State Warriors team. So at the end of the day, he's a body and he has an opportunity. We'll see what he does with that opportunity, but congrats to him. And thank you to everyone for joining the program today. Charlie Walter, this is Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you enjoy the content that Kylan and myself are giving you, go ahead, leave it a good review wherever you get your audio podcast. Leave any comment below on YouTube. That's a good way to shoot that thing out to Warriors fans in the algorithm. We will talk soon. Good night, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're listening and wherever you're listening. Have a wonderful day and go Dubs, everyone. Peace.